Alright, sorry guys, but this video is going to be a little bit different because my computer is, I guess, having a hard time after spring break getting awoke and together, but that's okay. So a couple of announcements on Thursday. Sorry, it's a bright color. It takes a minute to adjust sometimes. On Thursday, you're going to have your homework and your vocab. I still have several of you turning in homework and vocab late. Guys, this is just as if you were in school. I assign it on Thursday. It is your only assignment on Thursday, and it is due on Friday. My in-class students are required to turn one of the two in by the end of class, and you are required to turn. I have you doing your vocab that day. Vocab has to be turned in that day. The homework can be turned in the next day. But it is your Thursday assignment, so you should be working on both of these on Thursday. Yes, it takes a little time. Most of my students, I do have some that finish both of them in a class period, but most of my students, it takes about 15 to 30 minutes outside of class also to do it. So yes, it should be taking you longer than a class period to do it. So please, let's take care of business on that. I hate seeing some of you fail these because of late points. Friday is your journal test. Your journal test will be pages, sorry, I had this written down and I've already forgotten, pages 46, I believe, 46 to page, we're doing 52 today and 53 tomorrow, and they'll both be on there. So 10 pages that we're going to be covering. Be sure you have your vocab all down on page 45. All right, let's go ahead and get started on this. Like I said, I have some of this written down because I made this video and then my computer messed up and didn't save the video. So I am just going to, instead of rewriting it all down, I'm just going to show it to you. All right, so we are on page 52 of our journal. And hopefully my computer will not mess up. And what we're going to be looking at, it is having a hard time adjusting. Sorry, guys. Sometimes it just messes up on me. So 52, we're starting to look at, staying with our geometry, we're looking at shapes. We're going to be looking at volume. We're going to be looking at, actually, Thursday's homework is over volume. We're going to be looking at volume of some new shapes that you haven't really gotten a lot of practice on. We're going to be looking at surface area, which you were introduced to in 7th grade. We're going to look more in 8th grade at it. But that's what we're going to be doing for the next couple weeks. Well, to start that, you need a foundation of basic shapes. And so this is very much a review. So if you're like, oh my goodness, Ms. Joel, we already know this. Yes, good, you should know it. But I do like having it in our journal also. We're going to be going over the formulas, how to use them, things like that. All right, so we're starting off basic. And we're starting with a triangle. Now, we are going to be talking about 3 shapes on each side. So you're going to want to divide your left and right side into 3. You don't actually have to put a line. Just know that you're going to be looking at 3 shapes on each of those. Sorry, I was moving up my square a little bit. So the first one's a triangle. So we're going to talk about perimeter of a triangle. Now, perimeter for any shape, we add all the sides. There's no fancy formula for a triangle, though. We're just going to add our 3 outside sides. Okay? Area, we have 2 formulas here. And the first one is area equals 1/2 base times height, or area equals base times height divided by 2. With the note that B is my base. Notice it's lowercase. That's going to be important for tomorrow's lesson. Tomorrow, or the next day, sorry. H is going to be the height of that triangle. The height will make a right angle. And actually, we're about to look at my base and height meet. They are friends. They meet. They come together. So I want you to draw 2 different triangles. One of them is just a normal, probably equilateral triangles, which you think of 3 equal sides. It doesn't have to be. And then the other one is a right triangle. To draw both of those, you can go ahead and label the sides on there. We're going to talk about it. All right, if you need more time at any point, you can just pause this video. So our height is going to make a right triangle, a right angle. Do you see how it makes that right angle right there? And so the height is going to be the line that makes the right angle. And my base is going to be where my height meets. Now on a right triangle, we already have a right angle. So my height is going to be the side and the base is going to be the other side. So to add all these, we would need to know these three sides, or these three sides for perimeter. Area, we just need these two. Now, tricky thing they like to do is to give us all four of these numbers, and you have to decide which numbers do I need. I'm going to tell you this on Thursday's homework. One of your volume, all of the sides are given for the triangle, and you don't need them all. So know that for perimeter, you need all three sides, but for area, you just need the height and the base. All right, our next shape to review is a square. A couple things about a square. Our perimeter is 4s, where s equals side. You can also just add up all four sides if you want, but there is a fancy formula for it. It's not really that fancy, but And then area is going to be side squared or side times side. So a square is 4 equal sides. Each of those sides we're going to label an S. And to show that all four sides are equal, we put a line in all four of those sides. And that says these four sides are equal. Now, every year I ask this question, is a rectangle also a square? So, can my rectangle fall into this category? The answer is no. And the reason why is, a square has 4 equal sides, a rectangle does not. So, a rectangle is not a square. Which leads us to our next shape. If you have not guessed yet, drum roll please, it is a rectangle. A rectangle, the perimeter formula is 2L plus 2W. Area is length times width. You will sometimes, let's go ahead and add this. Sometimes you're also going to see an area written as base times height for this. You'll see it both ways. Trying to think for high school, if you stay in New Waverly, the Algebra 1 teacher, I believe she uses the length times the width. But you will see, I've noticed across the board, and especially in other, I know the STAR test has started to go a lot more to this base times this height thought. So you'll see it both ways. I guess I'm still old school and I just see it as length times width. Guess what? It doesn't matter which one's my length and width. Some people get really all upset about which one's my length and width, and it doesn't matter. So draw your rectangle. I did my smaller sides as my width because I find out that traditionally students like the smaller sides to be the width, and my other side's the length. For rectangles, we're going to have two sides that are equal and the other two sides that are equal. So I put 1 dash in each of these sides because they are equal, and then this one gets 2 dashes. Can't put 1 dash because that would say it's equal, and it's not. My length and width are equal, and that's not right. So I'm going to put 2 dashes. So we know that a rectangle is not a square. But can a square be a rectangle? So let's go back to our square. Do we have 2 sides that are equal? Yes. Are the other 2 sides equal? Yes. So a square is a rectangle. The form of rectangle. All right. If you need more time, just pause this video. If not, I'm going to keep on going. Our next one is a circle. circle, we do have a perimeter, but we call it circumference. I know that's not new to you. Circumference is 2 pi r, or circumference can equal pi d. Area is equal to pi r squared. Now I want you to notice something. Circumference is and area both have that 2. They both have the pi, they both have the r, but they're not the same. This 2 is big, which tells me I'm going to multiply 2 times my radius times my pi. And then area is saying it's going to be pi times the radius squared, which is pi times radius times radius. So be careful with that. R is radius, D is diameter, and pi for 8th grade we use 3.14. In 6th grade you use just the 3. I think in 8th and 7th grade you started using 3.14, but we always use 3.14 now for pi. When you get into high school, you're actually going to use that little pi button on your calculator more often, or just leave it as its symbol, pi. All right, so let's look at a circle. Let's draw some circles. All right. I'm going to draw just one circle. We don't need multiple ones. And I know a circle's not always the easiest one to draw, so if you want to find a shape that's circular and trace it, that's fine. All right, so on this, I'm going to find my center, roughly, and I'm going to go actually up with my R. That's my radius, and I'm going to lightly show you because it can be changed into the letter R. Radius. Versus a diameter, which goes all the way across, and I can close that one to make it into a D. Some people like to remember diameter is a longer word, therefore it's the longer of the two. It is very common for students to get the radius and the diameter confused. That's why I'm spending a couple of minutes just going over that, because I hate for us to miss it over something silly like that. All right, so that's our circle. This is where my video had stopped earlier. That's why I don't have any more written down. Our next one is a parallelogram. Now we're going to look at two shapes that y'all get very confused. Maybe not those of you at home, but I do know just from talking to some in-class students, they were getting parallelogram confused with this next one. The perimeter for a parallelogram is going to be 2L plus 2W. You'll notice I used a cursive L, and the reason why is if I use a normal lowercase l, then it looks like a 1. So we have to be careful with that. And our area is going to be length times width. Or base times height. So parallelogram, we're going to draw two lines that are parallel to each other. And I'll connect them. Parallelogram is a lot like a rectangle, except for it doesn't have the 90-degree angles. So we have opposite sides are equal. Opposite sides, are equal. Remember what I told you about this height. It's how to make a right angle. So you're going to drop a line, making a right angle, and that's going to be my height. And that's going to be my base, or my length and my width. All right. We also are going to make a note that these sides are equal, and these sides are equal. And that is a parallelogram. Call it a parallelogram because these sides are parallel. A rectangle is a parallelogram. A square is a parallelogram because it also has sides that are parallel. But I wanted to look at a special parallelogram. All right, our last shape, which actually has the hardest formula, and it's the hardest formula for students to hardest shape for students to remember. Now I'm going to tell you a hint that a student one time told me when I was tutoring them, and I don't know if this actually works because I just live in New Waverly. I am not a country person, really. So to find the perimeter, we're going to add all the sides. Oh, I just caught a mistake I made. Still on spring break mode. Actually, it is still spring break. Making this video. My perimeter for a parallelogram is wrong. I am so sorry, guys. It's going to be add all four sides together. Oh, sorry, guys. My brain is not quite shifted back into school teaching mode. Still spring break, actually. It's the Friday of spring break, actually. Just came up here to try to get some work done. Okay, so sorry about the mistake. You're actually going to add these four sides together for that. All right, back to our trapezoid. I'm sorry. We're going to add all the sides. But our area formula is actually a little bit more challenging. We have 1/2 b with a little 1 plus b with a little 2 h. And b with a little 1 is our base 1. And our b with a little 2, some of you are like, common sense tells us it's base 2. Some of you are like, man, I don't even remember what this shape looks like. We're going to draw it too, so we do need room for two shapes here. So I'm going to go with a slant, connect the top, connect the bottom. That is a trapezoid. Now, let's look at this one first, and then I'm going to tell you all the hints a student once told me, and I don't know if it will help any of you. So let's look. We need some information here. Base 1, base 2. It honestly doesn't matter which one. I tend to say this is my base 1, and this is my base 2. But you can switch those if you want. It's not even a big deal. And remember, my height has to be where it makes a right angle. So I need to form a right angle, and that'll give me my height. So to find this, I would add my two bases together, divide it by 2, and then we'd multiply it times that height. But there is a sneaky kind of trapezoid. So I want you to start off like you're drawing a rectangle, but don't draw that last side yet. This side's going to be slanted. So we're only going to have one side going at a diagonal. It's the same process. This is base 1. This is base 2. And I already have this right angle, so this would also be my height. I put that example because I found out several years ago that a lot of students did not identify this as a trapezoid. But this is a trapezoid. It's just a special kind. Okay, so here's the hint my student told me one time, and he is a huge hunter. And when I showed him this one, he goes, it looks like a raccoon trap. And I said, okay, if you say it looks like a raccoon trap, it looks like a raccoon trap. Maybe it looks like one. I don't know. I have no clue what a raccoon trap looks like. I have no clue what traps look like. But he said that this looks like where you would keep it. And I think it might have been upside down. I don't know. That's the door or something. I'm not sure. But maybe that'll help you. It looks more like a trap maybe to someone. If that's not true, then I'm so sorry I just gave you a hint that might not even work. But that is a trapezoid. All right, so this is in our journal. But we're going to practice some examples. Now, I like having all of these formulas in our journal. That way, I can always refer back to it. That's kind of the point of the journal. And this page, I know, I'm sorry, it's having a hard time adjusting today. right, so we're just going to focus on area because right now for volume we don't need perimeter. So we're going to focus on area. So this is, identify, it is a square. So my formula is going to be S squared by side equals 11. So I'm going to do 11 squared. 11 times 11 is 121, and it's going to be meters squared for its unit because I also had to multiply meters times meter. All right, let's look at number 2. It's a triangle. I don't care what formula you choose to use. I personally, I like the 1/2 base times height. We are going to always write our formulas down. You are going to need to know how to do your squared. If you are going to be typing any of your answers, I encourage you, write your answers if you want to. Take a picture of it, send it to me. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. All right, so here's my right angle. So this is my height. This is my base. So I'm going to do 1/2 base times height. Half of 10 is 5. 5 times 12 is 60. So I'm doing centimeters squared. All area will have the units squared because we are taking essentially a length and a width. We're taking two numbers and multiplying them together usually. All right, this next one is one of those beautiful parallelograms. So my formula is length times width or base times height. We traditionally do see base times height more with the parallelograms. Height is going to be where my right angle is, and a base. So I'm going to do 8 times 11, and I get 88 yards squared. All right, triangle. I want you to try this triangle by yourself. So I want you to pause the video, do this triangle, and push play when you're done, and we'll go over it. All right, so our formula for triangle, just to switch things up, I'm going to do base times height over 2, just so you can see that one. I have a base, I have a height. I always tell students, look for that right angle to get my height every time. So I'm going to do 14 times 11 over 2. 14 times 11 is 154. Probably should check that on a calculator. Divided by 2. So I'm going to actually check that on a calculator. All right, 154 divided by 2 is 77. So it is 77 inches squared. All right, let's look at a circle one together. So my formula is pi r squared. So I'm going to identify that my r is 7. So I'm going to do 3.14 times 7 squared. Order of operations say to do my exponent first. So 3.14 times 49. I'm going to do that on the calculator. As much as I would love to be that good at mental math, I am not. Though I do know I have some students who very impressingly impress me greatly with their mental math skills. I am not one of those people. And it is going to be feet squared because I did that 7 feet times 7 feet. And we do go to usually 2 decimal spots. As far as it's going to take us with 3.14. All right, the next one looks like a trapezoid. This is the hardest formula. So if you find yourself overwhelmed, I understand because this formula always gets students. All right, so there's my base 1. Here's my base 2, and I look for that right angle for my height. So area equals 1/2 base 1, which is 3, plus base 2, which is 10, times my height, which is 8. Order of operations tells me I have to do inside the parentheses first. So that's going to be 13 times 8. Little trick, I have 1/2 times 13 times 8. You can do this so many ways. You can do half of 13, then multiply it times 8. You could do 13 times 8 and then find half of it. Or I'm going to do what I can do in my head, which is half of 8. So I'm going to do 4 times 13. This is commutative property. It tells me I can do multiplication in any order I want to, and I took advantage of that. So it gets 52 meters squared because I added these two, but here was a meter, here was a meter. I multiplied together. All right, number 7 is a parallelogram, so I want you to try that one by yourself. We've already looked at a parallelogram, so I want you to pause this video, and when you're done, push play. All right, so our area is going to be base times height. We also have it listed as length times width, though it is traditionally base times height, so you'll see me do that one that way. So base and height. My base is 7, my height is 9. 7 times 9 is 63 inches squared. Easy. Rectangle. Rectangle is one we learned early on. Length times width. It doesn't matter which one's length and which one's width. I just did that one probably backwards for most of you in your head. You probably most of the time want that width to be the smaller one. And maybe somewhere along the way someone has told you it has to be. I don't know. Honestly, it doesn't matter. And so I just plug them in. 36 centimeters squared. Go ahead and do number 9 by yourself again. Work it out and be sure you're writing the formula and labeling your sides because I do require that. Alright, so this is my side. Side squared, so I'm going to do 5 squared, which is 25 feet squared. Which is why 25 is a perfect square. It makes a square. And why 5 is its square root. Alright, another circle one, you're probably going to need a calculator, or if you want to do it by hand, it does not. If you want to do it by hand, that's awesome. What I want you to do is I want you to try this one. I want you to pause it and push play when you're finished with it. Alright, so hopefully you identified that as radius. Area equals pi r squared. So 3.14 times 8 squared. Have to do that 8 squared first. Times 64. I am using a calculator. And we get, I'm going to write it down here so I don't have to write it too. 200.96, and it is centimeters squared. Hopefully you're trying these, not just watching me do them. It really benefits students when they actually work them out versus just watching someone do it. It's like learning to play basketball by just watching the game. You never get good at the game if you don't get out there and actually do it. Same thing in math. You're not actually going to get good at it, so you get out there and do it. All right, once you try number 11 and 12, we have a trapezoid here, and then we have a rectangle. I want you to try it, so I want you to pause and push play when you're done with both of these. All right, so hopefully you tried both. So trapezoid, that's our hard formula. Base 1 plus base 2. It's not really hard, it's just a lot more work. So it doesn't matter which one you labeled as base 1 and base 2, as long as you have your height as your 6. And it will affect the problem if you change your height out. All right, my base 1 is 5. My base 2 is 10. You might have switched those. I don't care, that's perfectly fine. 1/2, 15, and 6. Some of you might have said, hey, half of 6 is easy to do in my head. It is, which gives us 45 feet squared. Get in the habit of using your units. I'm going to be honest, I am horrible at remembering my units. I was in junior high, was in high school, was in college. That's where I lost points all the time. But get in the habit because you are going to have math teachers along the way who are going to require the units. And not just in math. If you go into ag and you start doing like any of the welding stuff, or if you do any of our high school welding programs where you're actually building things, then you're going to have to use your units, and they're going to require units. So, and science uses units quite a bit too. So, all All right, so length and width here, it's a rectangle. So 15 times 8 is 120, I believe, 80. Yep, 120 centimeters squared. All right, so hopefully this was a good reminder for you on shapes. If you have any questions, as always, send me an email. All your parents have most of your parents have my cell phone number. They can text me if they have questions about this. All right, good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow.